Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see you. And I hope everyone has had a chance to enjoy the wonderful spring weather that we've been having this week. Really, I think spring is really the best Dharma talk there is, at least as far as I'm concerned. I've really been appreciating it. And I hope we all have had a chance to savor and enjoy it. So, as most of you know, the last Thursday of the month is a talk devoted to the precepts. And I thought I would, I guess, try to connect up the precepts with our practice. Sometimes the precepts, can seem like, well, yes, that's just the same thing that all religions have. Help you mind your P's and Q's, and that then there's the rest of our practice where we're trying to realize it, whatever we may think it is. But actually, there's no separation between the precepts and the rest of our practice. And I'll try to bring out the connection a little bit tonight. So many of you are familiar with our Fusatsu service, which we will be resuming when we're all able to meet together and to do the lots of bowing that service involves. But that service is a great lens to look at the kind of connections I'm talking about. So as you'll recall, the Fusatsu service starts out with the Gatha of atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, born of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought. Now I atone for it all. And as we say week after week, atone means to be intimate with, to be at one with the evil karma. And that's not so easy for us usually because trapped in our patterns of grasping and aversion, we want to deny evil karma. We want to push it away. We don't want to be in the hot seat. We don't want to be responsible for the hot mess that the world has been, is now, and will probably continue to be. But we vow to be at one with our karma, our evil karma. And oddly enough, that being at one with the stuff we don't like is absolutely essential to being at one with the stuff that we do like. In other words, you don't get to pick and choose what to be at one with. The world is not divided up that way. Our lives are not divided up that way. And so as soon as we bow our heads, place our hands in Gasho and say, yes, I am at one with all the evil karma that's here now, that has been or ever will be, then we're opening ourselves right up to the next part of the Fusatsu service, which is, I am one with the energies of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I am one with wisdom. I am one with compassion. I am one with tireless consistency of practice. So by taking responsibility, by being at one with all the evil karma, we then become able to be intimate with our best human qualities, the qualities of wisdom and compassion that normally, with our grasping and aversion type of outlook on things, we're trying to get these things. I'm trying to be compassionate. I want this and I want that. Whereas if we're willing to be intimate with ourselves, which is to be intimate with the whole wide world, quite naturally, we become intimate with our best qualities. No grasping is required, just like no grasping is required to realize that we are also one with the suffering of the world. And then once we've been at one with, then comes the next part. So there's being at one with, I am thus, it is thus, but okay, nice. But, in a way you can say, so what? Well, when you're intimate with your Buddha qualities and intimate with the evil karma, then you can act with wisdom and compassion. And we express that in the service by renewing our commitment to the 4 bodhisattva vows, saving all beings, putting an end to desire, and attaining the unattainable Dharma. So in the Fusatsu service there, in a nutshell, you have what to our dualistic minds seems to be a paradox. It was sort of expressed by Suzuki Roshi when he told his students, all of you are perfect just as you are, and all of you need a little work. And we could say that to the world. The world at this moment is perfect just as it is. Perfect doesn't mean it's the world we most desire. Perfect simply means it's complete. Nothing to be added or taken away in this moment. And yet, we could all use a little work. Our world could use a little work, or maybe more than a little work. And by relinquishing our addiction to grabbing hold of the positive and pushing away the negative, we become empowered to take action. Now, our dualistic minds think that being at one with all things and realizing the perfection of this moment is a matter of great stillness and peace. Yes, just as it is. And it very much is a matter of great stillness and peace, but not quite in the way that our dualistic minds think of stillness and peace, because when we say the world is perfect just as it is, the world has already moved on to the next thing and the next. And we've already moved on to the next thing and the next. So quite paradoxically, at least to our dualistic minds, the stillness and peace that is our heart's desire is not separable from our work in the world. So in early Buddhism, very much stillness and peace was associated with reaching a very high spiritual plane and never coming back to the dusty world, never being reborn again. That was the Sravaka ideal. But in the Mahayana, which came a bit later, the ideal is one of the bodhisattva, the guy who gets his hands dirty, the guy who stops on the road and helps you change a tire, or when you come into the Zendo when you're a newcomer, who tells you, "Oh, right, well, this is how, this is what to do. Go do it. Welcome." So for the Bodhisattva in the Mahayana, the stillness and peace of the great Dharma is realized through wise and compassionate action in the world. So once again, wisdom is usually identified with Manjusri, who cuts off delusion, and the world appears just as it is at this moment, perfect and complete, like our own Buddha minds. But because the world is changing moment after moment, and our minds are changing moment after moment, and our selves are dividing moment after moment, that is not separable from compassion, the action of Avalokiteshvara, who hears the cries of this ever-changing world and has an uncountable number of hands and eyes to see the needs of the world, the needs of the humans and the animals and the plants, the whole ball of wax, and to respond with a spade, a shovel, some fertilizer, a word of encouragement. Those two things, wisdom and compassion, the perfection of the moment and action in the dirty world, they are not separable from each other. And constantly we get balled up by trying to separate them. As usual, we want the stillness, perfection, and peace, and we prefer not to walk the dusty roads of India as Shakyamuni did, and get our nice clean robes dirty and go begging from door to door and to preach the Dharma. With words, probably the least important way, but by our demeanor and our actions. Our demeanor and our actions can bring stillness and peace to ourselves and to others and then to the entire world. And the precepts are sort of a recipe for doing this. They're a recipe for enlightenment. It's not some exalted mental state or any kind of mental state. It's the realization of the perfection of this moment actualized through the wisdom and compassion of living our lives ethically. And as all the Buddhas and ancestors have pointed to, as the way that human life should be lived, and not just in Buddhism, but in almost any religion you can name. So in the precepts themselves, we can see these two sides presented. And I notice that one of the precepts really points beautifully at you're all perfect just as you are. And there's another one that points perfectly at you could all use a little work. So the precept of non-stealing, not stealing, I think points us at the perfection of what is. There's no need to grab after things. From the point of view of this precept, even our frantic scrabble to get enlightened, whatever we think that might mean, is sort of kind of a grabby, stealing thing, wanting something for what we conceive to be ourself, never realizing that our true self already has everything, absolutely everything. And Bodhidharma, in his commentary on this precept, points to this. He says self-nature is subtle and mysterious. In the realm of the unattainable Dharma, not having thoughts of gain is called the principle of not stealing. Well, why is the Dharma unattainable? Well, it's kind of, what do you give the person who has everything? You can't really attain what is already freely given to you without measure. And I think springtime is probably the best time just to realize how generously the world gives. We can see it in the blooming of the plants, the growing warmth and moisture in the air, the smell of the soil. And this is not something we have to reach for. It's given freely. And in fact, not only is it given freely, but it is our very own self and nothing but. Dogen Zenji says, the self and the things of the world are just as they are. The gate of liberation is open. The gate of liberation is open. But somehow, because we're so preoccupied with thoughts of gain, we don't see that the door is already open and we don't walk through. How do you walk through? Well, it's not hard. You just take a step. And the precepts tell us how to take that step. And then the Zen Peacemaker version of the precept is being satisfied with what I have, is the principle of not stealing. It takes quite a lot of introspection to see that really there is nothing we need beyond what's being given to us right now in this very moment. Being satisfied with what I have. I have the spring. I have a slight pain in my left knee. And I have a couple of cats that might run across the screen at any moment. Can I be satisfied with that? Can I be satisfied with giving a talk that maybe isn't so wise or brilliant, but it's just the best I can do at this moment? Being satisfied with what I have is the principle of non-stealing. So to me, the commentary on that precept kind of points to Suzuki Roshi saying, "You are all perfect just as you are. The world is perfect just as it is at this moment." But that understanding is not complete if we don't realize that the Dharma wheel keeps turning and turning and turning. We are that Dharma wheel, and we must turn. We must not just go, "Oh, wonderful, I have everything." That's more of that sort of grabby gaining mind I was talking about. And so we come to the precept of not being stingy, not sparing the Dharma assets. And this points to the other side. It's pointing to exactly the same truth as the third precept, but it expresses the other side very beautifully, not sparing the Dharma assets, not being withholding, not thinking that Zen practice is about getting into some peaceful, blissed out state that you can hold on to and just be fine while the world goes down the tubes. Not what it's about. So, what not sparing the Dharma assets. And Bodhidharma says self-nature is subtle and mysterious. In the realm of the genuine, all-pervading Dharma, not being stingy about a single thing is called the precept of not sparing the Dharma assets. The genuine, all-pervading Dharma. Now, some of you who are Dogen fans, when you hear the words all-pervading, you might have an association to a passage in Dogen's great essay, Genjo Koan. There's a story where a monk sees Master Yanquan on his porch, and it's a hot day, and Master Yanquan is fanning himself. And the monk says, "Master, the Dharma is permanent and pervades everywhere. Why do you need to fan yourself like that?" And the master replies, "You only understand the meaning of permanent, or I might say perfect, just as it is. You only understand the perfection of this moment. You don't understand the meaning of pervades everywhere." The monk says, "What is the meaning of pervades everywhere?" And the master, and then Dogen kindly explains, if you think you can have a cool breeze on a hot day without working the fan, you're really missing the point of the Buddha Dharma. If you think that this practice is about getting into some blissed out state where you're unmoved by the horrendous suffering in the world, you're really missing the point of the Buddha Dharma. The Buddha Dharma is about wisdom, yes, but it's about the function of wisdom, which is compassion. There's no place to gain a solid footing. The moment is changing even as I'm speaking to you. So in my case, I have to say the next word, and the next, and the next, and the next. Whether it's wise or not, doesn't matter. I'm here, my job is to speak, so I have to say the next word. Dogen wrote about this precept of not being stingy. One phrase, one verse. That's the 10,000 things and 100 grasses. One Dharma, one realization. That's all the Buddhas and ancestral teachers. Therefore, from the beginning, there hasn't been anything stingy at all. The Dharma is always being expressed. It's always functioning. It's expressing itself both as the perfection of the moment and the tremendous creative energy of change into the next moment and the next. And of course, when I say the Dharma, I just mean me. I mean you and you and you and all the little squares on my screen. All of us have the opportunity to realize the wisdom and compassion, which is our own true nature. And then finally, the Zen Peacemaker Precepts say, using all the ingredients of my life. This is the precept of not sparing the Dharma assets. Using all the ingredients of my life. And that brings us full circle back to being at one with all the circumstances of my life, using all the ingredients, not just, the little halo parts. Oh, yes, I want to be a good, compassionate person, but all the ingredients, all the yucky parts, our irritability, our vanity, our fits of temper, our despair and our hopelessness, all of these are ingredients that we can be at one with and use. The use comes to our hand freely if we are willing to be intimate with our full self, intimate both with our sterling qualities, but most of all intimate with our own suffering, our own yucky parts, the parts that we are ashamed of. As I said earlier, if we want to function with wisdom and compassion, we have to be intimate with the whole ball of wax. We don't get to select out the parts of spring that we like and those that we don't like. In my case, I really could do without the seasonal allergies that I'm beginning to experience. And yet, this is one of the ingredients of spring, along with the flowers and bird song. So the precepts, far from being a bunch of rules, they are actually the flower of our practice. And that's why we encounter them fairly early in practice through Jukai, taking the precepts. And students who are quite advanced revisit the precepts once again. So I think it's very fitting that we take this time at last Thursday of every month to open our hearts and minds to our own capacity to be Buddhas in this suffering world.